My name is Isabella Hayes, the woman who was thrown out into the freezing rain by the man I loved most while I was carrying the biggest secret of my life. And then, just a few years later, when I thought I had escaped the past, he came back, stood in front of me, and hurled the coldest threat of all. I'll file for custody. I'm their father. I have rights. That was the moment I knew. The real storm was only just beginning. Before I share my full story, tell me where you're watching from in the comments, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you've ever faced a challenge you thought you couldn't survive. Trust me, you'll want to hear what happens next. The rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of our Chicago penthouse, each drop a tiny fist pounding out a rhythm I'd never forget. I stood in the living room, my architectural drawings scattered across the glass coffee table, when Jonathan walked in. His Italian leather shoes clicked against the marble floor, a sound that usually meant he was home, meant safety, meant love. Tonight, it meant something else entirely. "We need to talk." His voice cut through the storm outside, colder than the November rain. I looked up from my blueprints for the new children's hospital, pushing a strand of dark hair behind my ear. "About the Riverside project, I finished the revisions. About the missing funds from the development account." He tossed a manila folder onto my drawings, the papers inside spilling out like accusations. Bank statements, transfer records. My name highlighted in yellow. My hands went cold. "What are you talking about?" "Don't." He held up a hand, his gray eyes I'd woken up to for 7 years, now hard as granite. "Just don't. The forensic accountants found everything. $300,000, Bella. Transferred using your access codes." I grabbed the papers, scanning them frantically. The numbers swam before my eyes. Yes, those were transfers made with my credentials, but I would never. "Jonathan, listen to me. I didn't do this. Someone must have used your personal laptop, your biometric login, your authorization codes that only you know." He laughed, but it was bitter, sharp. "I trusted you with everything. My business, my life, my—" He stopped, jaw clenching. The room spun. This couldn't be happening. Not Jonathan, not the man who knew me better than anyone, who'd held me through my mother's death, who'd promised we'd build an empire together. "You're really going to stand there and accuse me of stealing from you?" My voice cracked. "After everything?" "The evidence doesn't lie." He turned away, staring out at the Chicago skyline blurred by rain. "I've already called Hendricks. He's drawn up the separation papers for the business partnership, and as for us—" He paused, his reflection in the window cold and distant. "I want you out. Tonight." The words hit me like physical blows. I sank onto the couch, my legs suddenly unable to hold me. "You're ending 7 years over money without even letting me explain?" "There's nothing to explain." He pulled out his phone. "Security will be here in 10 minutes to escort you out. Take what's yours. Leave what's mine." That's when I felt it. A flutter in my stomach that had nothing to do with fear. The secret I'd been planning to tell him tonight over champagne and candlelight. The 2 pink lines on the test hidden in my purse. Our future growing inside me while our present crumbled. I stood on shaking legs, dignity the only thing keeping me upright. "I'll pack my things." "Bella," he called out as I reached the doorway. For a moment, his voice softened, and I turned, hope flaring, but his next words extinguished it. "Leave your keycard and the ring." I looked down at the 2-carat solitaire on my left hand. Not an engagement ring, he'd always been clear about that. Just a commitment to our future. My fingers trembled as I pulled it off, placing it on the entry table with a soft clink. 20 minutes later, I stood in the marble lobby, a single suitcase beside me, while the doorman I'd smiled at every morning for 7 years refused to meet my eyes. The security guard, Marcus, who'd shown me pictures of his grandchildren, held an umbrella over me as he walked me to the curb. "I'm sorry, Miss Hayes," he whispered. "Orders are orders." The rain soaked through my coat as I dragged my suitcase down the street, each step taking me further from the life I'd built. My phone buzzed. A text from Jonathan. "The locks have been changed. Don't try to come back." I didn't cry, not yet. Not until I was 3 blocks away, standing under the awning of a closed bakery when the reality crashed over me harder than the storm. I was 28 years old, pregnant, alone, and accused of a crime I didn't commit by the only man I'd ever loved. And he hadn't believed me. Not for a second. "Mama, look! I caught a crab!" Noah's voice carried across the rocky Maine beach, high and bright against the crash of waves. His twin brother Liam ran behind him, both boys matching dark curls wild in the salt wind. "Careful with those claws, baby," I called out, setting down my sketch pad to watch them. 4 years old and fearless, both of them. Their father's confidence, even if they'd never met him. The morning sun painted the coast in shades of gold and gray, so different from Chicago's steel and glass. Our cottage sat perched on the hill behind us, white clapboard with blue shutters, barely big enough for the three of us, but ours in a way that penthouse never was. "Isabella, you spoil those boys." Clara's voice drifted from behind me. My neighbor navigated the rocky path with surprising agility for her 70 years, carrying a thermos of what I knew would be her famous hot chocolate. "They're investigating," I said, accepting the warm cup gratefully. "Future marine biologists, maybe." Clara settled beside me on the driftwood log, her keen eyes studying my latest design sketches. Since moving to Portfield, I'd built a small client base. Mostly residential renovations, nothing like the skyscrapers I'd once dreamed of, but enough to keep us comfortable. "Any word from that Boston firm?" she asked. I shook my head. "They want someone who can travel, be in the office full time." Familiar weight of limitation settled on my chest. Every opportunity came with the same requirements I couldn't meet. Not with two boys who needed me. "Dr. Miller asked about you again," Clara mentioned casually, too casually. "That man's been sweet on you since the day you arrived." Ethan. Kind, patient Ethan, who'd held my hand through a terrifying twin delivery when I'd had no one else. Who still brought the boys sugar-free lollipops after every checkup, and remembered that Liam was allergic to strawberries while Noah couldn't stand blueberries. "Mama! Mama!" Liam's shriek cut through my thoughts. Both boys came running, their little legs pumping. "There's a man!" My blood turned to ice. I shot to my feet, immediately stepping in front of them. "Where?" "By the parking lot," Noah pointed. "He has a fancy car, like in the movies." Clara stood too, her hand finding mine. In a small town like Portfield, strangers were noticed. Strangers with fancy cars were remembered. "Take the boys inside," I told Clara, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "I'll check it out." But as I crested the hill, the parking lot was empty except for my beat-up Honda and Clara's ancient pickup. No fancy car, no stranger, just tire tracks in the gravel and my imagination running wild. That night, after tucking the boys into their beds, Noah with his stuffed octopus, Liam with his toy sailboat, I stood at their doorway, watching them sleep. The nightlight cast soft shadows on their faces, and I saw him there in their features. Jonathan's strong jaw, his straight nose, those impossibly long lashes. "You're getting paranoid," I whispered to myself. It had been 4 years. He didn't know about them, didn't know where I was. That part of my life was sealed away, like the emergency cash I still kept hidden in the freezer and the go bag in my closet. But later, as I sat at my small kitchen table working on client proposals, I couldn't shake the feeling. I'd learned to trust my instincts. They'd kept us safe this long. My phone buzzed. Unknown number, Boston area code. "Hello? Miss Hayes? This is Rebecca from Harrington Architecture. We received your portfolio and would love to discuss a potential position. Would you be available to come to Boston this weekend for a meeting?" My heart leapt. Harrington was prestigious, the kind of firm I dreamed of working for once upon a time. Yes, I could do that. "Wonderful. We'll email you the details. Oh, and Miss Hayes, we're particularly impressed with your work on the Chicago Children's Medical Center. Such a shame that project was never completed." The line went dead. I stared at the phone, my hands trembling. The Children's Medical Center. My final project before everything fell apart. Only a handful of people knew I'd designed it. The blueprints had been reassigned to another architect after I left. Someone was looking for me. The question was, friend or foe? Saturday morning came too quickly. I'd arranged for Clara to watch the boys, telling them Mama had to go see about a special job. Liam had clung to my leg at the door. "Promise you'll come back?" he whispered, his gray eyes, so much like his father's, wide with worry. "Always, baby. Always." I kissed both their foreheads, breathing in their little boy scent of sand and sunshine. The drive to Boston took 3 hours, each mile feeling like a step back toward a world I'd fled. The city skyline rose before me, all sharp angles and ambition, so different from Portfield's gentle curves. Harrington architecture occupied the top 3 floors of a gleaming tower. I smoothed my dress, the only professional outfit I still owned, and entered the marble lobby. My portfolio clutched tight. I rode the elevator up, watching the city shrink below. "Isabella Hayes?" A young woman greeted me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Right this way." The conference room was all glass and chrome, designed to impress. But it wasn't the view that stopped my heart. It was the man standing at the window, his back to me, hands clasped behind him in a stance I'd know anywhere. "Hello, Bella." Jonathan turned, and 4 years collapsed into nothing. He looked older, harder. Fine lines creased the corners of his eyes, and his dark hair showed silver at the temples. But those gray eyes, the ones I saw every morning in my son's faces, still had the power to steal my breath. "There is no job, is there?" My voice came out steady, a minor miracle. "There could be." He gestured to a chair. "Sit, please." I remained standing. "How did you find me? Does it matter?" He moved closer, and I caught his cologne, different now, sharper. "You disappeared, Bella. Vanished without a trace. Do you know how that felt?" "You threw me out." The words tasted bitter. "In the rain, like I was nothing. I was angry. The evidence was wrong, but you didn't care about the truth. You cared about your numbers, your reputation, I cared about you." His voice cracked, just slightly. "I loved you." "No." I shook my head. "Love believes. Love listens. Love doesn't call security to escort you out like a common thief." He reached into his jacket, pulling out a photograph. My blood ran cold. It was Noah and Liam at the beach, taken with a long-range lens. They were laughing, building a sandcastle, beautifully unaware. "Imagine my surprise," he said softly, "when I saw them in Boston last month. The resemblance is remarkable." My knees nearly buckled, but I forced myself to stay upright. "You've been watching us." "They're mine, aren't they?" His eyes searched mine. "The timing, their age, their faces. God, Bella, they look just like my baby pictures." "They're mine." The words came out fierce, protective. "Only mine. You lost any right to them when you chose not to believe me." "I had evidence. You had data, numbers on a screen. But you also had 7 years of knowing me, of claiming to love me, and you threw it all away for a spreadsheet." I grabbed my portfolio. "We're done here." "Bella, wait." He caught my arm, gentle but firm. "I know the truth now. About the money. About Marcus." I froze. "What?" "Your half-brother. The one you helped get a job in accounting. He used your access codes, your computer, when you worked from home. He gambled it all away, then fled to Costa Rica." Jonathan's grip loosened. "I found out 6 months after you left." The room spun. Marcus. My mother's son from her first marriage, who I'd tried so hard to help. Who'd sat at our dinner table, smiled at our generosity, and then... 6 months, I repeated numbly. "You knew for 3.5 years, and you never..." "I tried to find you. Hired investigators, checked hospitals, morgues." His voice broke completely now. "I thought something had happened to you, that you were hurt or..." "I was hurt." I pulled free from his grasp. "I was 28 and pregnant and homeless because the man I loved believed I was a thief. So excuse me if I don't fall into your arms now that you've discovered your mistake." I made it to the door before he spoke again. "I'll file for custody." The words stopped me cold. I turned slowly, Mama Bear rising. "You wouldn't dare." "I'm their father. I have rights." "You have nothing." But even as I said it, I knew the truth. Jonathan Cross had money, power, connections. I had a small cottage and a part-time design business. I don't want to fight you, Bella. He looked exhausted suddenly, older than his 40 years. I just want to know them, to be part of their lives. Like you were part of mine, until something went wrong and you threw me away? I gripped the door handle. They're happy, Jonathan, safe, loved. Don't destroy that because your conscience is finally catching up to you. I left him standing there in his glass tower, surrounded by his success and his regrets. But as I drove back to Maine, I knew this wasn't over. Jonathan Cross didn't give up on things he wanted, and now he wanted our sons. The custody papers arrived on a Tuesday. Liam answered the door, proud of being big enough to reach the handle. Mama, a man gave me these papers for you. I read them at the kitchen table while the boys played with blocks, legal terms swimming before my eyes. Joint custody, visitation rights, best interests of the children. Breathe, Isabella. Clara's hand covered mine. I'd called her the moment I'd seen the official seal. You need a lawyer. With what money? I laughed bitterly. You know what Jonathan's lawyers cost? More than I make in a year. Then we'll find another way. She squeezed my fingers. This town takes care of its own. The next few weeks blurred together. True to Clara's word, Portfield rallied. Ethan recommended his cousin, a family lawyer from Portland who took my case pro bono. The local diner held a fundraiser. Even the boys' preschool teacher offered to testify about what good mother I was. But Jonathan's legal team was a machine, filing motion after motion. They wanted psychological evaluations, home studies, financial audits. They painted a picture of an unstable woman who'd hidden children from their father, who lived paycheck to paycheck while Jonathan could provide private schools and trust funds. The first hearing was scheduled for December, 2 weeks before the twins' 5th birthday. I sat in the Portland courthouse, my single lawyer beside me, facing Jonathan's team of 3 attorneys in $1,000 suits. Your Honor, Jonathan's lead counsel began. My client simply wants what any father would, the right to know his children. Ms. Hayes deliberately concealed their existence, fled the state, and has denied these boys the advantages and opportunities their father could provide. I watched Jonathan across the courtroom. He wore a charcoal suit, perfectly pressed, every inch the successful businessman. But I caught him glancing at the photo of the boys on the evidence table, his mask slipping for just a moment. Ms. Hayes, my lawyer countered, left Chicago after Mr. Cross falsely accused her of embezzlement and evicted her from their shared home. She was pregnant, alone, and traumatized. Her actions were those of a protective mother, not a vindictive ex. Allegedly falsely accused, Jonathan's lawyer interjected. No charges were filed. No formal investigation concluded. The judge, a stern woman with silver hair, reviewed the files. Mr. Cross, you claim you searched for Miss Hayes after discovering your error? Jonathan stood. Yes, Your Honor, extensively. Yet you made no attempt to clear her name publicly? To restore her professional reputation after these accusations? He faltered. I was focused on finding her. I see. The judge made a note. Miss Hayes, are you opposed to Mr. Cross having a relationship with the children? I stood on shaky legs. Your Honor, I want what's best for my sons, but Mr. Cross has shown that when he believes something, he acts without consideration for others. He destroyed my life over a false assumption. How can I trust him with my children? Our children, Jonathan said quietly, but everyone heard. The hearing stretched on. Financial records were examined, living situations compared, Jonathan's penthouse versus my cottage, his millions versus my thousands. On paper, it was no contest. But then Ethan took the stand. Dr. Miller, my lawyer began, you've known Miss Hayes and her sons for 4 years? Since the day they were born, Ethan confirmed. I delivered them. Premature twins, complicated delivery. Isabella was alone, terrified, but she fought for those boys from the first breath. And in your professional opinion? She's an exceptional mother. Those boys are healthy, happy, thriving. They're gentle and curious and kind, all things they learned from her. He looked directly at me. Whatever happened in her past, Isabella Hayes has built a beautiful life for her children. To disrupt that would be cruel. Jonathan's lawyer stood for cross-examination. Dr. Miller, are you romantically interested in Ms. Hayes? Ethan flushed, but held steady. My feelings are irrelevant. My testimony is based on 4 years of observation as their physician. But you do have feelings? Objection, my lawyer called. Relevance? Goes to bias, Your Honor, Jonathan's lawyer argued. I'll allow it. Ethan straightened. Yes, I care about Isabella. Anyone who knows her would. She's remarkable. I saw Jonathan's jaw clench at that, his hands tightening on the table. The judge called a recess. In the hallway, I splashed water on my face in the bathroom, trying to calm my racing heart. When I emerged, Jonathan was waiting. Ethan Miller? He said quietly. Really? Don't. I tried to pass, but he stepped closer. He's in love with you. He's been there for us. Where were you? I met his gaze. Oh, right. Believing lies and signing eviction papers. Bella! He reached out, then dropped his hand. I know I hurt you. I know I failed you, but don't punish our sons for my mistakes. I'm not punishing anyone. I'm protecting them. From their father? From a man who throws people away when they become inconvenient. I stepped back. Tell me, Jonathan, what happens when they disappoint you? When they make mistakes, will you believe in them or will you just call security? His face went white. Before he could answer, my lawyer called me back inside. The judge's preliminary ruling came that afternoon. While I understand Ms. Hayes' concerns, I cannot ignore Mr. Cross's parental rights. I'm ordering a gradual introduction, supervised initially, with regular reviews. My heart sank. Beside me, I heard Clara's sharp intake of breath. However, the judge continued, given the circumstances of Ms. Hayes' departure from Chicago and Mr. Cross's admitted failure to investigate thoroughly before taking drastic action, I'm also ordering Mr. Cross to establish a trust fund for the children's education and to provide temporary support to ensure Ms. Hayes can maintain stable housing during this transition. It wasn't a victory, but it wasn't complete defeat either. As we left the courthouse, Jonathan approached one last time. I'll make this right, Bella, I swear. You can't, I said simply. Some things can't be fixed with money or promises. You broke us, Jonathan. All you can do now is try not to break them, too. The first supervised visit was scheduled for the following Saturday. I'd told the boys simply that they'd be meeting someone special, someone who wanted to know them. They'd accepted it with the easy adaptability of children, more interested in whether they could bring their favorite toys. Jonathan arrived exactly on time, pulling up in a rental car instead of his usual luxury vehicle. He wore jeans and a sweater. I'd never seen him in anything so casual. The social worker, Mrs. Patterson, waited on our porch. Mama, is that him? Noah whispered, peering through the window. Yes, baby. He looks nervous, Liam observed with 5-year-old wisdom. He was right. Jonathan Cross, who commanded boardrooms and closed million-dollar deals, stood at my gate looking terrified of 2 small boys. I opened the door. Boys, this is Jonathan. Jonathan, this is Noah and Liam. Hello, they chorused, not shy exactly, but cautious. Jonathan knelt to their level. Hi, I brought something for you. He pulled out 2 wrapped packages. I heard you like the ocean. They looked at me for permission before accepting. Inside were books, beautiful illustrated encyclopedias about sea life. Not toys, not bribes, but something thoughtful. Cool. Noah flipped through pages. Look, Liam, a giant squid. They can grow up to 43 feet, Jonathan said quietly. That's longer than a school bus. Both boys' eyes went wide. Really? And just like that, the ice began to crack. I watched from the kitchen window as they explored the beach, Mrs. Patterson trailing behind. Jonathan let them lead, answering their endless questions, helping them turn over rocks to find crabs. When Liam slipped on seaweed, Jonathan caught him easily, checking for injuries with gentle hands. He's good with them, Clara observed, joining me. He always wanted children, I admitted. We were waiting for the right time, his business to be more stable, my career to be established. I laughed bitterly. The perfect moment that never came. Maybe it just came later than expected. That night, After Jonathan left and the boys were asleep, I found myself looking through old photos on my laptop. Pictures I'd thought I'd deleted, but somehow couldn't. Jonathan and me at Navy Pier, at his company's gala, me in the red dress he'd loved, building sand castles on a vacation to Turks and Caicos, laughing about practice for future children. My phone rang. Unknown number. Bella? A familiar voice, but not Jonathan's. It's Marcus. My blood froze. How did you get this number? Please, just listen. I know what I did was unforgivable. You destroyed my life. My voice shook. I tried to help you, and I know, but there's something you need to understand. It wasn't just me, Bella. Jonathan's father. The line went dead. I tried calling back, but the number was disconnected. My hands trembled as I set the phone down. Jonathan's father? William Cross, who'd always been coldly polite to me, who'd made subtle comments about my background, my family's lack of money. I pulled out my laptop, something nagging at my memory. There, emails from around the time everything fell apart. William had asked Jonathan to reconsider our relationship, to think about more suitable matches. I'd laughed it off then, secure in Jonathan's love. Now, I wondered. The supervised visits continued. Each week, Jonathan arrived with that same nervous energy, gradually relaxing as the boys warmed to him. He taught them to skip stones, helped them build elaborate sand castles, read to them about pirates and sea monsters. Did you really build tall buildings? Liam asked one afternoon. I did, still do. Mama builds things too, Noah said proudly. She made Mrs. Murphy's house pretty again. I know, Jonathan said softly, glancing at me. Your mama is very talented. Could you build a castle? Liam persisted. Like a real one, with towers and everything? Maybe we could design one together, Jonathan suggested. On paper first. And there it was. The ease between them that I'd both feared and hoped for. Natural as breathing, like he'd always been there. Mrs. Patterson recommended moving to unsupervised visits. I couldn't argue. Jonathan had been nothing but patient and appropriate. But anxiety gnawed at me. This was moving too fast, too smooth. In my experience, when things seemed perfect, that's when they shattered. The call from my lawyer came on a Thursday night. Isabella, I need you to sit down. What's wrong? I received a package today. Documents, recordings. It seems Marcus reached out to me before he disappeared again. He's provided evidence about the embezzlement. Isabella, this goes deeper than just gambling debts. There are emails, recorded conversations. William Cross was involved. He helped Marcus access the systems, provided him with your passwords. The phone slipped from my numb fingers. Clara caught it, putting it on speaker. Are you saying Jonathan's father framed Isabella? Clara demanded. It appears so. Marcus got in deep with some dangerous people. William offered to clear his debts if he helped discredit Isabella, make her seem unstable, untrustworthy, force a breakup. I sank into a chair. Jonathan, does he know? That's unclear. But Isabella, this changes everything. With this evidence, we could countersue. Defamation, emotional distress, lost wages. I need to think. I hung up, my mind reeling. All those years. The pain, the struggle, the nights I'd cried myself to sleep wondering how Jonathan could believe I'd betray him. And all along, his own father had orchestrated it. But did Jonathan know? Had he been part of it? Or was he another victim of his father's manipulation? I looked toward the boys' room, where they slept peacefully, unaware that their grandfather had tried to erase them before they were even conceived. I didn't tell Jonathan immediately. I needed time to process, to plan. But the universe had other ideas. The storm warnings started Friday afternoon. A nor'easter, they said, unusual for the season, but powerful. I battened down the cottage, stocked up on supplies, told myself we'd weathered worse. Jonathan called. I can come help with storm prep. We're fine, I said automatically. Bella, please? The boys? Have survived 4 years of storms without you. It came out harsher than intended. I said we're fine. But by Saturday morning, fine was relative. The wind howled like a living thing, rain driving sideways against the windows. The boys were restless, cooped up, and cranky. Can we go to the beach? Noah whined. Just for a minute? Absolutely not. But we always check on the tide pools after storms. Not during storms. I tried to distract them with games, movies, but they'd inherited their father's stubborn streak. Clara called. Power's out on the point. You okay? So far. I glanced at the flickering lights. I should probably find the flashlights, though. That's when I realized the boys were too quiet. Every parent knows that silence, the kind that means trouble. Noah? Liam? I checked their room. Empty. The bathroom. Empty. Boys! The back door swung open, banging against the wall. My heart stopped. No, they wouldn't. But their rain boots were gone, their little jackets missing from the hooks. I ran into the storm, Clara's shouts lost in the wind. The path to the beach was treacherous on a good day. Wet rocks, steep drops. In this weather. Noah! Liam! The wind stole my voice. Through the driving rain, I saw a figure on the beach. Tall, searching. Jonathan? But how? He turned, and even from a distance I saw his panic. They're not with you? The tide pools, I gasped, reaching him. They wanted to check the tide pools. We ran together, slipping on wet rocks. The waves crashed higher than I'd ever seen, swallowing the usual landmarks. The tide pools where the boys loved to play were underwater, waves smashing against the cliffs. There, Jonathan pointed. 2 small figures huddled on a rock outcropping. Waves crashing closer with each surge. They'd climbed up, trying to escape the rising water, but now they were trapped. Stay here, Jonathan ordered, already moving. Like hell. I followed him across the slippery rocks. Mama! Liam's terrified voice cut through the storm. We're sorry. Hold on, babies. Jonathan reached them first, pulling Liam into his arms just as a wave crashed over the rock. I grabbed Noah, clutching him tight as the water tried to pull us under. Jonathan's free arm wrapped around us both, anchoring us against the surge. When it pulls back, we move, he shouted in my ear. Together. The wave receded, and we scrambled higher, Jonathan somehow managing to carry Liam while supporting me and Noah. Another wave, bigger than the last, rose like a wall. Hold your breath, Jonathan commanded. The water hit like a freight train. Salt burned my eyes, filled my mouth. Noah's arms tightened around my neck, and I held him with everything I had. When we surfaced, gasping, Jonathan was already moving us again, higher, further from the hungry sea. We made it to the tree line just as the next surge hit where we'd been standing. I collapsed on the soggy ground, Noah still clutched to my chest, both of us sobbing. Jonathan set Liam down, then pulled all 3 of us against him. It's okay, he breathed. It's okay, I've got you, I've got all of you. Liam was crying too, apologizing over and over. We just wanted to see if the starfish were okay. Shh, buddy, you're safe. That's all that matters. Jonathan's voice broke. He pressed his face against my hair, and I felt him shaking. We stumbled back to the cottage, a strange procession. Jonathan carrying Liam, me carrying Noah, all of us soaked and shivering. Clara met us at the door with towels and tears. Hospital, she said firmly. All of you. Now. Ethan met us in the ER, professional despite his obvious relief. The boys were fine, cold, scared, but uninjured. Jonathan had a gash on his leg from the rocks, which he'd hidden until Ethan forced him to sit. You could have been killed, I said quietly, while Ethan stitched him up. The boys were with Clara, getting hot chocolate from the nurses. They're my sons. He winced as the needle went in. I'd die for them. For all of you. Don't. The word came out choked. Don't say things like that. Why not? It's true. He caught my hand. Bella, I know I failed you before. I know I can't undo that. But today, seeing them in danger, I can't lose them again. Any of you. I pulled my hand free. Your father tried to destroy me. The words hung between us. Jonathan went very still. What? So I told him about Marcus's call, the evidence, the setup, watched his face cycle through disbelief, rage, and finally, a terrible understanding. The audit, he whispered. He suggested the audit, said we needed to be more careful with access codes, And he had dinner with you that week, remember? When I was in New York. Your laptop? He got my passwords then. My voice was hollow. Gave them to Marcus. Jonathan stood abruptly, swayed, sat back down. I'm going to kill him. No. I was surprised by my own calm. You're going to be a father, that's all. Our boys need you whole, not in prison for patricide. Our boys, he repeated softly. You said our boys. I hadn't realized. The truth was, somewhere between the first visit and him risking his life in a storm, they'd become ours, not just mine to protect, but ours to raise. I can't trust you again, I said carefully. Not the way I did. But maybe we can build something new. For them. He nodded slowly. I'll take whatever you can give. And Bella? My father will pay for this. Legally, financially, every way possible. I'll make sure of it. The lights flickered as the storm raged outside. But inside, for the first time in 4 years, I felt something I'd thought was lost forever. Not love. That would take time, if it came at all. But possibility. The chance that broken things could be rebuilt. Different, but maybe stronger. Hope. The storm passed, leaving a changed landscape. Driftwood scattered like bones, new channels carved in familiar beaches. But we were alive, together, and that shifted everything. William Cross's downfall was swift and thorough. Faced with Marcus's evidence and Jonathan's fury, he folded like wet paper. Rather than face charges, he transferred significant assets to trust funds for the boys and disappeared to his estate in Switzerland. I didn't want his money, but Jonathan insisted. Not for me, but for Noah and Liam's future. It's justice, he said simply, and it ensures they'll never want for anything. The custody arrangement evolved naturally. Jonathan bought a house in Portfield. Nothing ostentatious, just a weathered Victorian near the harbor. Close enough to co-parent, far enough to give me space. Spring arrived with tentative warmth. The boys split their time between houses, adapting with the resilience of children. They had 2 bedrooms, 2 sets of toys, but more importantly, 2 parents who'd learned to put them first. Dad's teaching us to sail, Noah announced one afternoon, sand in his hair from their morning adventure. Dad. The word still jolted me sometimes. A little sunfish, Jonathan clarified, meeting my eyes. Nothing dangerous. Everything's dangerous with you two, I said, but I was smiling. We found our rhythm. Jonathan handled morning drop-offs when he was in town. I did pickups. We sat together at school plays, shared birthday planning, texted about homework struggles and growth spurts. Not partners anymore, but partners still. Ethan and I tried dating briefly. He was everything Jonathan wasn't. Steady, careful, predictable. But that was the problem. My heart had been shaped by storms. Calm waters felt like drowning. I'll always care about you, I told him over coffee at the diner. But you're still in love with him. Ethan's smile was sad but knowing. I've seen how you look at each other, even when you're angry. It's complicated. The best things usually are. Summer bloomed full and golden. The boys turned 6, brown as berries from beach days. Jonathan threw himself into fatherhood with the same intensity he brought to everything. He learned to braid friendship bracelets, to distinguish between 20 types of seashells, to make perfect sand castles that could withstand the tide. I caught myself watching him sometimes. This new version who listened before acting, who apologized to the boys when he was wrong, who'd traded $1,000 suits for board shorts and sunscreen. You're staring, Clara noted one afternoon. We sat on my porch while Jonathan taught the boys to fly kites on the beach below. I'm supervising. Mm-hmm. She sipped her tea. That man's been trying to win you back for months. He's being a good father. He fixed your roof last week, rebuilt your deck, plants flowers in your garden when you're at work. He's helpful. Clara snorted. Honey, that's not helpful. That's courting. She was right. Small gestures accumulated like sea glass. My favorite coffee appearing on my doorstep before dawn. The boys' bikes mysteriously maintained. Jonathan showing up whenever something broke, tools in hand and sleeves rolled up. I can call a handyman, I protested when he arrived to fix a leaky pipe. Why waste money? He slid under the sink, and I definitely didn't notice how his shirt rode up. Besides, I like being useful. You're the CEO of a major development firm. And I'm fixing your pipes. People can be multiple things, Bella. Like the afternoon, he was both businessman and father, rushing from a crucial meeting to Liam's school when our son fell off the monkey bars. I found them in the nurse's office, Liam on Jonathan's lap, tear-stained but safe. He was brave, the nurse told me. Didn't cry until his dad got here. Dad, father. The words that rebuilt worlds. Fall arrived with its familiar rhythms. School started, routine solidified. Jonathan began traveling less, delegating more. His penthouse in Chicago sat empty while he haunted the hardware store in our tiny town, learning the names of every clerk. "Why don't you just move here permanently?" Noah asked one evening, innocent and direct. Jonathan glanced at me. "My work." "You work on your computer mostly," Liam pointed out with 6-year-old logic. "And you're here all the time anyway." From the mouths of babes. The moment that changed everything came in October. I'd been fighting a cold that wouldn't quit, exhaustion that went bone deep. Jonathan found me asleep at my drafting table, a half-finished design beneath my cheek. "Come on," he said gently, lifting me. "You're burning up." I was too tired to protest being carried to the couch, too sick to object when he called Ethan. Pneumonia, it turned out. Nothing dangerous if properly treated, but I needed rest. Jonathan moved in without asking. He slept on the couch, managed the boys' schedules, fielded my clients. I drifted in and out of fevered dreams, waking to find him placing cool cloths on my forehead or coaxing medicine between my lips. "Why?" I asked one night, chest aching with more than illness. "Because you're theirs," he said simply, "and what's theirs is mine to protect." But in his eyes, I saw the truth. Not just theirs. Mine. Still mine, after everything. When the fever broke, I found him asleep in the chair beside my bed, the boys curled against him like puppies. Noah's hand clutched Jonathan's shirt. Liam's head rested on his shoulder. My broken family, pieced together in ways I'd never imagined. "You're awake." Jonathan stirred, careful not to disturb the boys. "You stayed." "Where else would I be?" He reached out, hesitated, then brushed hair from my face. "This is home." "Jonathan, I know you can't trust me, that I broke us. But Bella, I've loved you every day for 11 years. Even when I was stupid, even when I was wrong, even when you were gone. That hasn't changed. Everything's changed. No, the scenery's different. We're different. But this," he gestured to the boys, to me, to the small room that held our whole world. "This is what I want. Not the penthouse or the deals or the empire. Just this." I studied his face, mapping the changes. The humility that had replaced arrogance. The patience that had gentled his ambition. The man I'd loved had been refined by loss, shaped by fatherhood, softened by our son's unconditional love. "I can't go backward," I whispered. "Then let's go forward. Whatever that looks like, however long it takes." He stood carefully, lifting both boys with practiced ease. "I'll wait." But I was tired of waiting, tired of holding my breath, of preparing for the next storm. Maybe Clara was right. Maybe broken things could be stronger at the mended places. "Stay," I said softly. "Not on the couch. Stay." He turned back, hope naked on his face. "Bella, I'm not saying forever. I'm not saying I forgive everything, but stay." He carried the boys to their room, tucked them in with the tenderness that still surprised me. When he returned, he sat on the edge of my bed, careful not to presume. "I dream about that night sometimes," he admitted. "The rain, your face when I didn't believe you. If I could take it back." "You can't." I caught his hand. "But maybe that's okay. Maybe we needed to break to become who they needed us to be." "Wise Bella." He lifted my hand, pressed it to his cheek. "I've missed you so much." "I've missed you too," I admitted. "Even when I hated you, I missed you." He stayed that night, holding me while I slept off the last of the fever. Chaste as teenagers, careful as new lovers, we began the slow work of rebuilding. Not what we'd had, that was gone forever, but something new, forged in storms and strengthened by small hands that trusted us to make their world whole. Winter came early, blanketing Portfield in pristine white. The boys learned to ice skate, Jonathan's long limbs folded patiently as he caught them over and over. I watched from the warming hut, hands wrapped around hot chocolate, as my past and present merged into something like a future. "He's good for them," Clara observed, joining me. "Good for you too when you let him be." "I'm trying. That's all any of us can do." On New Year's Eve, after the boys were asleep, Jonathan and I stood on the porch watching snow fall over the harbor. Fireworks bloomed in the distance, marking endings and beginnings. "Resolution?" he asked. "No more running," I said. "From anything. You?" "To earn this. Every day." He pulled me closer. "To never take it for granted again." "It won't be easy. We're different people now." "Thank God," he said fervently. "I didn't much like who I was." "I did," I admitted. "I loved him. But I think I might love who you're becoming even more." He kissed me then, soft and careful, tasting of promises and possibility. Not the passionate claiming of our youth, but something deeper. A choice made with eyes open, hearts scarred but still beating. "Mama? Dad?" Noah's sleepy voice drifted from inside. "Is it the new year yet?" We broke apart, smiling. "Almost, baby. Want to watch the fireworks?" They tumbled out in footy pajamas, faces bright with excitement. Jonathan lifted Liam onto his shoulders while Noah wrapped around my waist. Together, we watched the sky explode in color, counting down to a year that held no guarantees except this. We would face it together. Not perfect, not healed, but whole in the ways that mattered. A family forged in storms, strengthened by truth, held together by small hands and stubborn hope. The bells rang midnight. The boys cheered. Jonathan's hand found mine in the darkness. "Happy New Year, Bella." "Happy New Year." And for the first time in 5 years, I believed it might be.